RDMS as a user experience designer. I also founded and helped co-organize the Downtown UX meetup, and I'm very delighted to have the opportunity to be your moderator today for the Design and Civic Engagement panel. First off, we have Devin Kornschmeyer. Oh man, yeah. Who is the co-president of AIGA Orlando, and of course, applause for AIGA Orlando. For bringing us all together today to talk. I'm very excited for the conversation. Next up, we have Cole Neesmith, who is the executive director of the Creative City Project.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
And finally, Michelle Brennan, who is the communications, the director of communications and neighborhood relations for the city of Orlando. To kind of kick us off, I wanted us to jump in and start talking about this, really just the expression of civic engagement, and what does that mean? So I'd love to hear from whoever would like to kind of jump in with that. What does civic engagement mean to you, or how do you define that? What does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I can always talk. For me, civic engagement, I think all of us understand ourselves in the context of a bigger picture. And it's the question of like, how do I fit into that bigger picture and what is my role? And I think we all answer that to varying degrees. There are plenty of nonprofit organizations, and some of us are involved in that work, and some of us give to that, and that's really important. And some of us, rally people toward action, and that's really important. So I think that there are opportunities to give of our time and of our money and of our talent. And I think when we engage civically, the question is, where am I going to do those things and for whom?
Thank you, Paul. That was great, wasn't it? So civic engagement, something that I'm actually really passionate about. I've been in this community since the early 1990s, early 1990s, and have had the opportunity to work both in our nonprofit and our government sectors. And to me, civic engagement is all about what you do as an individual and what we do collectively as groups to make our community better, to make a better quality of life, how we rally together, how we stand together, how we address issues, problems, how we create solutions, just how we collectively work together to make it amazing. And that to me is truly what civic engagement is, and it's something that comes from here. And it starts here and then filters out. So it needs to start from the heart.
I really can't add anything better to that.
I want to comment just like what I know of us as a people, what I know of AIGA, what I know of the artists and designers in our city, is that so many of us, probably all of us, in some way are already exhibiting generosity in our lives. And I think it's really important for me in the context of this conversation of like recognizing we're all doing this in some way. The question is just how do we choose to do it, and how do we relate to one another in the midst of the process? So I know that I'll just kind of throw this out there from the get-go. A lot of this precipitated from this flag conversation, and I think that is one of the things around it is like, when is it appropriate for us to ask those questions? When is it appropriate for us to engage? When is it appropriate for people or companies or organizations to ask that of us, and how we do it? So I mean, it's complicated for sure, but I think it's important that as we move forward in this conversation, just for all of us to recognize we all doing good stuff in here to some degree. So let's just like be grateful for that and acknowledge it. So that's what I'd say.
Yes, and I'm going to take one step back because as I was looking down at my notes, I realized I totally forgot to mention Stephanie. So Stephanie Darden, who is supposed to be on our panel as well, is not feeling well today. She's not feeling well today, so unfortunately she wasn't able to join us. But we will definitely miss having her perspective and kind of the thoughts that she'll bring to that. So hopefully we'll try to do our best to represent her thoughts as well. I also want to make sure I let you all know that you can write down questions for the panelists on the note cards. So does everybody have note cards or access to note cards? Yes. So write down questions for the panelists on your note cards and raise your hand, and some volunteers will snag it for you, bring them up to me. So I think that was all the housekeeping. Oh, while I'm here, restrooms are down. Yeah.
You might
It's important,
share pens.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we brought up the flag, and that's a great thing to segue into, because actually one of the things that Stephanie wanted us to jump into was to invite you, Michelle, to share a little bit of kind of, like, let's get an introduction to the story of the flag project and how that came about, kind of what was the intentions behind it, the heart behind it, and where'd that journey kind of start from?
Absolutely. It's interesting for me to be up here. Normally I'm the one writing the questions and editing all the content, so this is going to be great to kind of be on the flip side and to hear all of your thoughts when you start submitting some of those questions. So the city of Orlando is nearing the end of our flag contest. How many of you have heard of the flag contest? Great. Well, we did a great job then promoting it and talking about it. That's the first. Probably about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we started to get some individuals in our community that started to reach out to us and said, hey, has the city ever thought about doing another flag contest? And at that point, the answer was no, we really hadn't. We have a flag and we were just enjoying that flag, and it didn't really rank on the top 10 things that we were focused on. But we started to kind of hear a couple more people ask and ask and ask, and these people were people that we value their opinions, Paul being one of them. And so we started just to kind of think, what would it be like if we wanted to host another flag contest? So some of my staff who are here today, and I'll give them shout outs in a moment, I asked them to go and do some research because I knew we weren't the only city that was looking at redoing their flag after the TED Talk had gone out. A lot of cities had started kind of going through that process. So they did almost about a year's worth of research, just looking at other cities, seeing what they did, how they hosted their contests, what were some of their successes, and where were their failures. What we wanted to do was kind of put together something that made sense for our community, but we also wanted to avoid some of the issues that some of the other communities faced. So what we took away from our research was some of the communities that had a lot of issues were if they didn't have support of their community. Well, we checked that box off because we had already heard from our community that there was some interest. We didn't really measure that interest, but we knew that there was actually some interest. The next was elected officials. Where are they? Are they interested in it? So we did a quick round and just kind of checked with our elected officials, and they were all interested in it. So we kind of checked that box. Then we went and did the historical research, when was our last flag contest? Who was a part of it? How they felt about us doing another flag contest? How it would be received from the organizations that hosted that first contest. Again, everyone was like, okay, they were open to the discussion. So we went back and kind of put together what we thought would be a valuable contest. And one of the glaring principles of how we designed our contest was that we wanted it to be the city's flag. We wanted it to be the people's flag. We didn't want it to be something that the city of Orlando and the government, hosted this contest. We did, bureaucracy at its best, where we put out an RFP or an RFQ, and we took designers or companies that wanted to produce the flag, and we took it through procurement and all of that government red tape. We wanted it to be a little bit more organic and a little bit more inclusive of our community. And we realized that a flag, even though it's art and it's design, a flag is supposed to be simple, something that anyone can draw. So we didn't want to create any natural barriers. So we decided right from the beginning that we were going to open this up to everyone, that we were going to not go through our normal procurement process. We weren't going to bring on a design firm. We weren't going to be paying artists to do it. And that we wanted to see what our community had. And we decided on pretty early, and that sparked a lot of interesting conversation when we initially rolled that out, why we decided that. And again, we kept on going back to the same principles, was that we wanted this flag to be designed by a person for our city, that we could point to someone and said that they had a chance to participate in something that maybe they wouldn't normally if we had put all of that red tape and all of those barriers in place. And sometimes when you make decisions like that, they're pretty bold decisions, and you'll get people that will disagree with those decisions. But leadership sometimes isn't always pretty, and people often disagree with leadership, and that's the beautiful thing about our community and our world, is that people have the right to disagree with that. But there was something that just kind of kept pushing us forward, thinking we knew we were doing the right thing. And I'll tell you the glaring moment for me that I had that aha moment when I realized we did the right thing was when we got down towards the end of our contest, when we were down to 4 finalists. We brought all of those individuals in, which at that time we didn't even know who they were. They ended up all being artists in their own sort of right, but we didn't know that. I mean, it wasn't some sort of form that they had to fill out. They didn't have to show us a profile or a portfolio. And when they all came in, they all saw themselves as artists, but sometimes they saw themselves as a little bit of a non-traditional artist. They didn't get paid for art for a living. Some of them did, some of them didn't, but they just thought it was a really great opportunity for them to sit and doodle and to create something that they were passionate about, which was their city. And one of the actual finalists had said to me, and her statement just resonates with me over and over again. When she was leaving our office, she said, "Thank you." And it's just something so simple that we say every single day. And I stopped and I was like, "What are you thanking me for?" Because I didn't really know. And she said, "For the opportunity." She's like, "You removed all of the barriers. And if you had set more processes in place and made it more, if you needed this to qualify, to do this to qualify, to do this to qualify, I would have never submitted my design." She's like, "I love to draw, but I'm not an artist by trade. That's not how I make my living, but I love to draw." And she said, and I felt that this contest was something for everyone. And I just looked at her and I said, "Thank you." And she said, "Why are you thanking me?" It was kind of an awkward exchange. And I said, "Because that's exactly what we were trying to do. We were trying to really remove barriers. We have a challenge, especially with government, in connecting people to their government. And the reason why we have those challenges is because we have a lot of processes and we have a lot of barriers for people and they don't feel connected to their government. And the whole point of this flag contest was to eliminate and reduce every single potential barrier and just open it up and just say, if you're interested, we want you to participate. That's it. No more, we talked about, do they have to live in the city? Do they have to show proof of residency? And it was like we decided to just eliminate everything and just to see how it evolved organically. And as a result of that, we got an amazing participation. We had just over 1,200 flag submissions from around the world. I think we had over 6 countries. I think it was over 6 countries that participated, which is fascinating. We had schools that wanted their entire classes as part of their civic assignments to participate. So students, young students, that when you ask them about government, they're like, I don't know, what, okay. But they were like, "Oh, this is cool. I didn't know that this is a way that I could connect." And it really helped a lot of people with that sense of civic pride and that connectivity piece, which we as a government want because, we're all part of this city. This city is us. It's these living human beings that are right here in this room. And so that's kind of how we morphed our contest. I don't know if I did. Good job of getting there.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a success, and we hopefully will have a new flag. It is tentatively scheduled to go in front of the Orlando City Council on July 24th at one of our meetings in July. And with approval of that governing body, it will be the official city flag. We're getting a little creative with how we're going to be using that because it was important to be the people's flag, the city's flag, your flag. We're not going to be doing what we would consider traditional trademarking, stuff that we love to do at City Hall. We're going to be going through the Creative Commons licensing and allowing people to have access and use it and really embrace it.
Awesome. So, obviously, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation if everything was rosy. So kind of in that same vein, obviously, it's really exciting. We need a new flag in Orlando. We can all, I think, agree on that. But I'd love to kind of dive into a little bit of maybe what are some of the perspectives around the flag project and maybe some challenges for it.
I think for me, one of the things that I discovered along the way was a value. And that was something that was illuminating to me. So I was asked to be part of this, I think because I sent an email 2 years ago asking, are we going to do this or what? Because if you're not going to do it, Creative City Project's going to do it, so you better hurry up. And you know, the process was a little bit established before we were invited to kind of participate. And it may have been just before or after our first meeting, I actually sent Michelle an email and said, hey, can we offer or find some compensation for the artist whose submission is made? And through that process, one of the things I realized is for me, and I think for a lot of people in this room, and for even some of the voices of like dissent, if you will, it was a recognition of artists are valued because they're paid. And I totally believe that, and I totally agree with that. And I think what I didn't understand was that was the single kind of telescope I was looking through. That this process, the sole purpose of it, should be to elevate and value an artist. And I think that can happen. And I think the process wasn't perfect. But what I saw was, and what I heard from Michelle was, that it wasn't a mistake. The decision wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight. And it wasn't meant to devalue artists. The highest value in this process, from the way I evaluate it, was engaging the community and inviting them into a process. And I think there's still, even now, a tension in me about that. I don't think that they necessarily have to be in competition with one another. I don't think that they have to be placed side by side, kind of in a competitive way. There may be some ways to maybe fulfill both, but I realized my lens was narrow and there were more ways to look at it. And so I think for me, that's how my perspective started in one place and maybe broadened a little bit through the process.
I think intention is a really great way to say it. Like I am representing the organization, Professional Association for Design, and therefore the organization takes a stance against spec work and contests and anything that would undervalue or devalue art and design. It's a difficult profession for us to exist in and prove value for. So I completely agree with you, Cole, and then Michelle, listening to the heart behind why the process went the way it was is completely different than, changing the lens, changing the perspective, knowing that that's not the intention, is to just get free work. But as it stands too, as a representative of this AIGA Orlando, as this group for design, I did write a letter to the city about just another potential direction or way of doing it, just to say there's adding value through money, but again, completely understand now the heart behind it, which wasn't necessarily explained through the process of putting the contest out there. But again, there's that tension because we want to support the community, want community engagement, want to be very inclusive and support art and design as well as a valued profession. I think it is also difficult being the government and as a designer existing in a city where we are undervalued. It's very difficult for us to get paid. Artists as well, but design for me specifically. And making a living in Orlando is much more difficult. We are statistically underpaid in this field in Central Florida. So it was also difficult when our government, was taking that stance of also not paying for the service of design.
Can you talk about?
Even during the flag process, there were paid RFPs that went out from your office. Can you talk about like that process and this process and the difference that you saw? Sorry, I'm not trying to step on your job over there. Are you going to pay for this?
That's the that Victor was talking about on the phone the other night. Yeah. Well, first, I want to say two things, and then I'm going to answer your question. Part of our research, when we were looking at other cities, that had put out call for artists and did RFPs and paid, $1,000 stipend for the project. What they found, the lesson learned there was the city paid that money, and then when they adopted the flag, or they didn't adopt the flag because it could never get approved by their leadership, it failed. Because a flag is a piece of art, and art is so subjective. And as you know, people look at art differently, and they connect it with it differently. So one of the lessons that we learned from other communities is that you can put out and you can pay for art, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be beloved and accepted by the community. So that was just kind of something that just kind of was in the back of our mind.
And can we just acknowledge that if it had been a paid RFP, there would have been no fewer complaints. It would have just been about something else. Case in point, Orlando City logo process. They paid somebody a lot of money to design that thing, and a lot of people, probably in this room too, had a lot to say about it. So it's like, it becomes a different conversation. It's not, why aren't you paying? It's, why does that logo look the way it looks?
So it just goes back to, it doesn't matter what you choose to do, there's always going to be the side of people that agree with it, and there'll be people that don't agree with it. And the people that don't agree with it often have really great reasons, a lot that you just articulated. So it's challenging. And like I said, when you make a leadership decision, it's often not a popular decision sometimes, but it's one of those things that if no one makes that decision, change doesn't happen. We all just sit around and go, oh, am I going to upset someone? So nothing happens. And so sometimes you have to go out there and hope when you have an opportunity to tell your story, some of the people that didn't maybe understand it a little bit better. And even if they don't agree with it, they understand why you went and did it that way. Okay, now back to the question that I believe Cole asked was, so the city does value artists tremendously. I mean, I work with them all day and every day. So we have a team of graphic artists in our office, and we know how amazing artists, not just graphic artists, but artists of all types are. And in fact, Mayor Dyer does an awful lot to make sure that we are bringing in all different types of, and supporting all different types of arts here, whether it's the music scene, the interactive arts, the graphic arts, the digital arts. And it is important to this community. And the city does have a process where, just right now, our brand new fire station that just opened up, which is Station 2 in our Paramore neighborhood, there was a call for artists out to do a bronze relief that will be part of that public building. We have a beautiful sculpture that was part of the new Orlando Police Department headquarters. We have our sea art sculptures that we put out throughout the community. So there are opportunities that the city does pay for and encourage, and has an RFP process to be able to pay for artwork as well. And then, any of our new buildings that go up, there is a public art component to all of that. If you come into City Hall and a lot of our other public buildings, there are beautiful art galleries. There's amazing art that's always changing and moving around. The Manila Museum, it's very much alive in our community, and is supported by our community and by city, city government. Does that answer your question, Paul?
Sure.
So, kind of in this realm between the space of RFPs and artwork that is kind of being approached in that direction versus artwork that's being kind of reached out to the community for. In all of your experiences, what is your impression on the quality difference? Is there a quality difference? Is that important?
Yeah, 100%. Well, not 100%. Oftentimes, yes. And I think this is where the opportunity and maybe the conversation comes from. There's a conversation happening in our performing arts community about this very thing. There are some organizations who are offering free services that are now taking the place of paid performances and taking jobs away from artists who are paid to do those jobs. And it's pretty contentious right now within some of the performing arts community. One of the greatest issues, in addition, is the client is receiving a less quality product, and for the most part, the person who's hiring never knows, because they're not at the corporate party, or they're not at the meeting, or they don't, they're not at the thing to see that it's a less quality product. So there are times when that is certainly the case. And I think we see it in the visual arts field, I think we see it in the design field, I think we see it across the board. I don't think it's a hard and fast rule that just because you didn't pay for it, that it's going to be different, a different level of quality. There were professional artists who submitted and made their way to the final round of the flag process. And again, just like with the Orlando City logo process, there were a lot of people who had all kinds of things to say about the 4 finalist flags. But in my opinion, there were flags with good design principles that were options in that final round. And so I don't think it is a hard and fast rule that if you don't pay X number of dollars for a product, that you're going to get a crappy product. That being said, I don't think that any artist has the obligation to participate in any creative work if they don't want to do it. So, I mean, I think that's the other half of this is like, again, all of us have these moments where we say, yeah, I'm going to do that for way less than I'm worth, but it's because we care about the thing. And no one's saying anybody in this room has to care about the Orlando flag or this city in general or whatever it is that somebody's emailing you to do for free. And we all have the opportunity to say no to that. I think it's our job as producers of content, or it's our job as artists to not point across the chasm of misunderstanding and say, you're doing this wrong and I'm walking the other direction. I think I, as an artist, and I, as a producer, have the opportunity and responsibility to say, here's how maybe this could be different, and I want to engage in the process to help make it that way. And none of us have the obligation to say, I want to be part of the process to make it different. Everybody has the option to say, I'm not going to participate. But I think for me, I say, this is an opportunity for me to educate. Case in point, quickly, there was a department at the city who an artist approached and said, hey, I want to help you as an artist, let's do this mural. And they then, with the head of the department's signature on the bottom of the paper, said, we want to do a mural thing and we're asking artists to do it. I immediately responded, we at Creative City Project would love to promote this opportunity. How much are you paying these painters who you're asking to do these murals? And the response was, we don't have any money to do that. And I said, I would really encourage you to find it. And they found money to pay those artists. And I helped them through that, and our organization was the money that people were writing checks to funnel onto those artists. Because we were in a position, first, to challenge it. It was wrong. Like, in my opinion, it was wrong to ask for that work for free. But then there was an opportunity to engage. And then because of that engagement, something changed. And that does not happen most of the time. That happens some of the time. But we have an opportunity in those moments. And I think that's, for me, an important part of the conversation. Is like, how are we responding or reacting to this circumstance? Because we have a choice there.
I think that's always the kicker, like what you started off saying, Cole, is like, when and how do we do things for free as artists? Like, we have this skill, we have this talent. I personally believe I was given this talent to serve with it. So there are plenty of times, because I believe in what I'm asked to do for free, I will do it for free sometimes. But again, when and how and for whom and at how many hours, it's all, and to your point then too, like every person has the individual responsibility to decide that for themselves, whether they want to invest in that way and not get paid for it. That's kind of like the mic drop statement, like, you decide for you. Yeah, exactly.
Do it.
Oh, right, yeah, no.
Even from a time investment standpoint, Stephen, who was one of the artists who submitted one of the final designs, was at every single one of our flag design panel meetings. And when we first got the email, I think it was, can you come to 2 meetings? Well, that turned into like 9. 7. And he was at all of them. Even the ones after the committee, which I'm sad about this, the committee eliminated his option, and his was my favorite. After that his option was eliminated, he still showed up because he cared about this thing. And not everybody in this room has to care about it as much as he did, but he cared about it. And he's a professional artist, and he does this, and he's on the grind, and he's trying to make a living just like all of us in this room are trying to make a living, and he's probably underpaid. Maybe he's a millionaire, I don't know. Like, all of us are underpaid. Like, this is all our reality, and I totally get it. I totally get, like, oh, you're making the culture worse by doing this. Like, I see it, I get that. But I think when we adjust the lens, that was really helpful for me to be like, oh, there's also another thing here.
And so it is a very delicate balance, and it's a gray line. It's not so clear, and every situation is different, and there are those opportunities where we get to engage in a conversation like the example that Cole just gave us. In my office, I have the communication side, but I also have the neighborhood relations side, and I'll give you an example that we use a lot with our residents out in our neighborhoods and why it's important for them to have organized neighborhood associations. And the philosophy behind that is you're supposed to come together as a group so that if and when there's issues, you're not looking at each other for the first time and you don't really understand each other and where you want to be. So I use that example in a neighborhood setting, but there's no different than different sectors of our community. So the design community coming together through amazing groups like this, able to have conversations and maybe talk about what are some of the situations and how do you choose to engage. And when I got the letter, I got it, I understand, and as an organization, you need to provide leadership to your membership and direction because that's what they're looking for. And so I respected that wholeheartedly. And I understood why, you needed to make that position and go on record with that and respected it tremendously. But when you want to, going back to the example that Cole just gave, when something's going wrong, that's not the best time to start firing off emails and cold calling and showing up on people's front doors. Those are relationships that you should be cultivating all year round. And so the only time you don't want to hear from the design community when something's going wrong. Like, we need to hear from the design community more consistently, more frequently on different topics. Good topics, difficult topics, they don't always have to be beautiful and rosy. But the more organized you are, the more connected you are to the community, the stronger your voice will be, and it will be able to, when those opportunities arise that Cole just talked about, be able to challenge those a little bit. And people hear you differently because it's not the first time they're hearing from you. So you have different relationships, so you're more open to it. When Cole, he was talking about some of those early on phone calls and emails that I was getting regularly from Cole. They weren't, hey Michelle, you're the best, love you, can't wait to serve on this committee. He was like, what are you doing? He was not happy with me at all. And we had I listened to him because I respect him, and this isn't the first time we've talked. And I understood what he was saying, but I was trying to explain to him the process and the thought behind it, knowing that I might not change the way that Cole feels, but just to have his lens broaden just a little bit, just so that he can understand where I was coming from, was hopeful. The last piece I want to talk on was a little bit of the question that you had asked earlier on, and this is really where I think Stephanie would hone in a lot about when do you pay and when do you not, and do you get subpar work if you're doing it pro bono or spec work. Just from some of the conversations that we've had, a lot of our agencies in town and individual artists do a lot of spec work and pro bono work because they are motivated by the mission and the cause of that organization that they want to help serve. And it's actually part of Civic's business model. It gives her employees an opportunity to kind of connect back. I have an opportunity to serve on a nonprofit board here locally over in Maitland, the Holocaust Center, and there is a local, pretty large firm that is donating work for us right now, and they just did a big presentation, and there was 6 of their employees that came to present in front of the board, and everything from a digital campaign to print campaign, it was amazing. And when I was listening to the individuals that work for that company present, they were presenting like their soul to us. It was their artwork. They were so proud and so connected to try to deal with this issue of hate that's going on in our world right now, and how the Holocaust Center can take a leadership role in bringing non-traditional groups together to have conversations, to better understand each other, to stop the craziness that's going on in our world right now. And I watched every single one of those artists get up and make a presentation, none of which were getting paid for. And I mean, I was teary-eyed by the end of it because it was something that they were so near and dear to. And it just made me think, I'm really glad that they have an opportunity to do this because it was something that was important to them and they were able to serve their community in that capacity. And I thought it was just a really special moment, different because I had my volunteer hat on versus my paid.
So, I've got two questions here that kind of play off of that, actually. So, kind of having an agency donating time, obviously there's a very high level of talent that they probably can bring to the table. And so there's a couple of questions here. So one specifically is, so a design firm would typically design something like a city flag to be used as part of a design system, or kind of think about it in all of the different kind of ways that iconography could be used and all of the things that it symbolizes. So with the process that was gone about here, and honestly, we can actually pull this conversation to not be specific about the city flag, but just any really design work in general. Is there a plan to incorporate this flag into a larger design system, or maybe is the approach that was taken are there kind of viable challenges there? Kind of similarly, is there a difference between an artist and a graphic artist? Kind of thinking about research, strategy, structure, grids, meaning, and kind of thinking about when we put thoughtful design together. Is that something that there can be challenges when just kind of approaching a community for a design?
Well, I'll start and I'll make brief comments. So I think the term artist is really broad, and I personally like to keep it broad because what I've learned is that, and I consider myself an artist, but don't give me a piece of, my team will tell you, I can't even draw stick figures. I can't edit videos, I cannot do digital art, I can't sing, I don't play an instrument, but for some reason, I still feel like I'm an artist because, I'm not sure why, but I do. And I love to keep that term very broad. And I guess I don't like to put people in buckets. So holistically, I like to keep people very broad. As far as the flag goes, and limiting that to just an actual physical flag, I think was that the question? Like being able to reproduce that in different.
Well, so for a design system, that the iconography used on the flag, maybe it's going to be used on city banners, it's going to be used on letterheads, it's going to be used in a myriad of different ways.
Okay.
So the way that we approach designing that icon, even the way that we do research around it, the symbolism that we put into it, the intention we put behind it, it is a lot more than just a piece of art. Like there's a lot of meaning behind a flag for a city. So I think the question was really going at is this the best approach for that?
My hope is that you will see this flag in different ways. So the purpose of having a flag, a people's flag, and it's not just owned by the government, owned by the city, is that people can use it in different shapes and forms. There's a lot of, when you think of great flags that are out there, state of Colorado has a great flag, Chicago has a great flag, we could probably name a whole bunch more that we love when we were doing our research. The general community use that flag in all different types of ways. So will we as a city government be using that flag in other ways other than a physical flag? Yes, I hope so.
And to just be even more specific with it, like for me, the reason Steven's design was the best is because it was the most liftable. There were elements on it that could be lifted for other applications. But from a design kind of system perspective, we actually kind of went, like one of the fountain on the flag, the final proposed flag, is deliberately not a logo. It's deliberately not the city's logo. And actually that was a point of contention because there were those who said, why would we do a different piece of art here and not just use the logo that we had designed and just launched in January that is the new city logo, which you've probably seen around. And I think it became most popularized around the time of Pulse last year. I guess so it wasn't January. It was January 2016. When was it? When it was launched? The new logo?
What year are we at?
We're in 20
Last year, yes.
Last year.
I'm like, what year are we?
So you've seen it kind of after Pulse, they kind of modified it with the rainbow pin. You've seen a lot of those. The fountain that ended up on the final flag is deliberately not that logo because it was not intended to be a logo slapped on a piece of cloth. And actually, our next to last meeting, that was the one that was in discussion to be sent to city council for a vote. And like literally, I had to go to a friend's house after that meeting and sit in their living room and vent. And my friend said, Cole, there are a lot of battles you're fighting, and maybe this is not the one you need to fight.
I don't know how many asking Cole to sit on the committee.
Fortunately, the logo is not on the flag because that's not what logos are for. And actually, that's not what flags are for. And I think if there is a difference between an artist and a design artist, there's also a difference between a designer and a flag designer. And so there are specific design principles that we took into consideration, spent a lot of time talking about in order to come to where we are. I still think Stevens better fits those design principles. But again, the lens is broader than Cole's lens. Cole was looking at it, what do I want to fly in front of my house that looks cool and is designed well and will be lasting for a really long time? It was Stevens' flag. I did not win. And maybe I'll print it as just an homage, right? But yeah, it was thought about in the system. It was deliberately not meant to be replicated as now on the business card of a city employee.
What's your perspective, Debbie?
I think, Matt, you hit the nail on the head when it comes to the value of designer in a process in terms of thought behind any design that we create. Is how is it transferable? What are all the applications it's going to be? How does it translate in so many different ways? What are the colors? What do they mean? How does this culturally translate? All of those things are part of a design process. And ultimately, the things you get in working with the designer. So I think that's whoever wrote the question. That's interesting because I actually wouldn't have thought of city flag as being something that should be part of a system, but of course it should. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
That's great. Cool. So, kind of jumping off from there, kind of talking about the process, and obviously we've all gotten to hear the story, kind of understand why the process was approached and what it was, and why you just kept the ship on that course. And I think we can all kind of understand your perspective there. But there's a couple of questions just kind of around the process that we approached it on. So one of them is, do you think that limiting the participants to within the city would have opened up the possibility to face-to-face collaboration? And then another question about process is a little bit more broad. It's just, we've heard a lot of reasons about why it was done this way, but does that make it right? What are the other ways that we could have approached this design challenge that perhaps maybe would have respected the creative community? Yeah, who would like to jump in?
I love the first question because I know the answer already.
Why don't we jump in with that first?
No, I know what you're going to say. The face-to-face collaboration, the local component. Okay, so we sat around the table. There were like 800 that were laid out. We got down to 12 and our 1,200 that were laid out. We got down to our 12. Yeah, we got down to the kind of the top 12 or 10, was it? And then we got down to the top 4, and it was purely coincidental that all 4 of those people were local. So you talk about those people coming in face to face.
And I'm actually going to dive a little bit deeper because the process was actually really great. So first of all, we had set the benchmark. I think we were like, if we get 200 submissions, we'll be really excited. So they were slowly coming in. Like the day before the deadline, like all this mail came in. We also had drop boxes throughout the city because, again, we were trying to make it accessible to everyone, which is why we didn't do digital submissions. We did it old school, we had draw, we took out all of the digital divide issues, all the technology stuff. We went old school on this. So the day that the contest deadline hit, it was like probably, I guess, what the North Pole experience with the letters to Santa. It was crazy. And so I looked at my team and I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do with all this? We have a committee meeting tomorrow. So quickly, everyone, because I have such an amazing team, we divided them up and we put them into we clustered them. So everything that had animals, we put in one pile. Everything that had physical structures, we put in another. Anything that had, so kind of regrouped them in likeness. Then we laid them all out, and we started, I think, with 5 tables, and it was the running joke because everyone was like, we need more tables, we need more tables. So we laid it out all in this entire conference room on top of butcher box paper. And when the committee came in, they were handed Sharpies, and they had to go around and spend, it was hours, kind of going through, and they had to put a little dot next to something that they liked. It could be the entire piece, it could be one element of it, and it was very clear that anything that didn't have a dot next to it would not make it to the second round. It was like a bagging the survivor. So we did that, and that cleared away a bunch. And then we had to go back and we had them rank them and we had them number them, and that took care of some more. And then we came to the table and literally sat around a table with this committee that we formed. Individuals from the committee were selected because they had design background, they were historians. We put together an eclectic committee because we are a very eclectic community, and we wanted to make sure that that committee represented that. And they literally, face-to-face, hashed it out until we got to the top 10, which was what we put out for public voting. After the public voting came in, we narrowed down to the top 4. And then we actually, like Cole said, it was amazing. Out of 1,200 submissions, 6 different countries. How many states do we have? 12 different states. The 4 finalists were all local, which was amazing. So I picked up the phone and called them, and one by one they came in, Steve being one of them, and they were amazing, all 4 of them, in their own different way. One was a young woman who just moved here, one was an older gentleman, a more seasoned gentleman that had lived here for a long time, and he actually did this hand signage for Winter Park CDs. And so he was old school when everything was done by hand before even computers. Just from a young entrepreneur, businessman, it was all over the board. And we worked with them and kind of talked about what we liked about their design, how they could make them stronger. And as their designs evolved, they became better, I thought. I know as they came in, any of the changes that we made, all of the artists were like, ooh, that looks really good. We made a joke with the swan one that it really actually wasn't one of our favorite, but when we made some tweaks to it, I think Janet had said, she's like, I think I just made a top 10 contender. I'm like, I think you just did, and sure enough, it was in the top 4. So it was very much a collaborative hand-on process. It worked out that way. It wasn't set out to be that way, but it worked out that way. And what I heard is that there is so much talent right here in our local community.
How many times did they come in?
3 times.
And they worked with your design team, which is a team of professional designers.
Yes. So Brett and Janet and Trinity, raise your hands. They are part of our graphics team at City Hall, and they literally came in. We had paper and colored pencils, and we had computers, we had everything, and we just talked about what the artist's vision was for this flag, what the symbolism was for it, and just kind of talk through a little bit about how we can make some minor modifications to make those designs stronger, because they were going on the flag, because as you know, not all designs look great on a flag. And it was a very collaborative process, and something that I'm really proud of.
So kind of jumping into that second question, with all of that said, and maybe even just taking that step back into even not specifically this particular competition, but just, reaching out to the community for design in general, what approaches are the right ways to engage with the community?
That's funny you said that, because I was going to ask the same thing, because Michelle, you made the point in terms of homeowners associations and being a voice and getting to know each other before problems arise. And I think it's a very, how do we as a design community then engage in the city? I know it's something that we've done and have tried to do several times, and I think it always comes back to the question of how do we do that? How do we become neighbors before, it's not something that we exist. We have been meeting for years. We've been an organization since 2000 and have been in the city since then as a part of this community. And so, but beyond that, how do we do more, to engage more, to be a part and make a difference? Because ultimately, as designers, we're problem solvers. We want to bring great solutions to the table. We want to involve ourselves and make a difference and use the skills and talents that we have to do that. It's a question that comes how.
Well, can I?
So I think even to kind of talk about like how could the process have been better before how do we connect is I think this actually happened backwards. I think this meeting should have happened 3 months ago, and I do think it is partly the city's responsibility who's initiating the work to reach out, not just to point at AIGA or designers and say, you should have been in relationship with us already, and I'm not saying that's what you did. But I do think if I were to say, okay, how could we go back and do this potentially better? It would begin with a conversation maybe with the people whose industry it would affect the most. Because I think that... Thank you. Because I do think we would have gotten more different submissions had this process been the other way around. So that is what I would say about how it could have been made better. I guess now back to your question. How to connect.
So that's a great question, and it's all about relationship building. And I think we made the first step, meaning 2 of our artists that work with us are actually members, and that's a first for us. I mean, up until then, we didn't even have membership in this organization. So to me, that was a big step. In fact, I was telling April, between our membership here and Natalie's involvement with Code for Orlando, like we need to do a better job. A lot of it is just we just don't have robust budgets to join professional organizations. But that's not an excuse anymore. It's a necessity. So we're finding ways to make sure that we're sitting at the table now with different community groups, with different professional groups, so that we can be part of those conversations earlier on.
Can you describe that more, or did you just say there's now membership in this organization as there wasn't before?
Correct.
Yeah, I can tell you, I got notification from the national AIGA that the City of Orlando is now AIGA members.
I think that's significant.
We're a member-supported organization.
We're slow sometimes, but we'll get there. We mean well. We just always sometimes can't get there quick enough. So without feeling like I need to defend that, because I love the conversations and I always feel like we should be open. Looking back, would I have engaged more? Maybe, probably, could have. I'm one of those people that I love to do, and we'll do this once we're done with the contest, because we'll be putting together a paper after, because we feel like our lessons learned will be valuable for others that are going to go down this path. That would definitely be something that would be of note in our research, which wasn't given to us when we did our research. So it is important, especially being able to have conversations like this after the fact, that I would recommend to someone else, to go have that conversation. But I'm going to flip the question now, because I love to do that. And is if I came here and told you what our vision was, as we planned, would that be received well with this group? Or would you still, draw a firm line in the sand and say, we're still not going to support it unless there's a financial incentive for people to participate?
I think as designers, we all engage in pro bono work for free very often, because we believe in what the mission and the goals and the values are. And again, that goes back to any designer having to make that choice for themselves if they want to do that. Would it have been well received? It's hard to say. I think hearing about the research in the process, I think hearing about the inclusivity or whatever the word is, that heart behind that too also casts that vision for a much greater thing. But again, the idea of engaging in the design process with the designer often doesn't always create great work. We as design communities will bash each other's work so fast. Like a logo's put out there and everybody's really quick. And they probably paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that, and we were all, like they were still paid, but it still isn't received well. But it's that partnership, it's the thinking, it's the thought.
Did you all do a design thinking workshop around transportation or something soon after the flag? Like I don't.
Downtown Park.
City parks posters. So there's like a handful of us that was all pro bono. We each chose a park that we designed a poster that is actually in City Hall right now being displayed. And that was all our own time that we all gave back. But I think the difference was the approach of how we were approached. And we were given the opportunity because it was explained to us what it was for, what the meaning was about it. And I think that's what's hard because as designers, we struggle with constantly presenting our work and knowing that it's subjective with whether people like it or not like it. And so we try really hard to let those people understand that there is strategy, research, there's a grid system, there's good typography and really bad typography. There are specific principles that we live by, which makes great design. And I think that although you want to say everyone is an artist, is true, however, it is very segmented. A flag you're going to get from a fine artist is going to be very different from a flag you're going to get from a designer, an illustrator, a digital artist is going to be very, very different. So the fact that most of the flags, the 10 that were chosen, or however many in the first round, looked like a logo design, that's when the design community, the graphic design community was like, wait, whoa, what is this? If it had been some very artistic, acrylic abstract designs that were in the voting process, or some kind of cartoon character from an illustrator, or something really three-dimensional and graphic looking, I think that would have looked at the entire artist community, but because it ended up being an icon type logo, that's when the graphic design community came out. And I think that's the elephant in the room here. And that's why I think the people who are here are passionate about giving their opinion about it and feel strongly about it because it does affect this community most. However, the other thing, and I'm like beautiful, I was thinking something else. I know that you recognize this gentleman here, but is the actual flag the person who got the winning flag? Is that person here to represent? They're not. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that they felt that
if that person was here, I would have spoken.
It's not to those artists specifically is what we're upset about. I think it was more about that there are design principles that are clearly not demonstrated in this particular design, and for us that just makes us our skin crawl because those are things that are learned and taught and expected, and it's not in graphic design. It's not all loosey-goosey. So I think a lot of us may feel that way because there's definitely specific rules and principles that make up a great graphic design.
It was really hard for us to not share the artist's name. The committee decided that early on, just to really focus on the design instead of the individual. And I can't actually wait to share our winning artist story because he is an artist and he's actually a UCF graduate, graphic designer. He works here locally, and all of that stuff that you just said, he was schooled in. So, you know, the challenge is it wasn't, those principles were there in his design as he submitted it. There was a committee that was made up of artists, different types of artists, that were able to kind of oversee that process a little bit. They didn't often always agree, but had great conversations about it. So to kind of circle back on that question, whether or not, you know, when is the right time to engage is, it's never too early to engage in any type of conversation. Even before you don't even know what you're going to talk about, there's never a right time. But there also needs to be, and I think you had mentioned it earlier, within this community, you made light of it, but it's so true, and we see that because, you know, our artists at City Hall are just like you know, their work is so subjective and they put themselves out there every day, and their clients sometimes look at them and like, what were you thinking? And they have to deal with a lot of the same issues that you were mentioning.
That happens real time.
No, I know, that's a really good point.
I
When,
just wanted to add just one thing, I'm sorry.
This is April.
Natalie and Jen, who was our senior graphic designer at the time, came and actually spoke with this group, and that's how we learned about passion about supply. It was one of the, I
There's
didn't
one
want
people
to.
watching this on.
Sorry. April's our communications manager at the city.
So that's where a lot of this actually started, was in this room, you know, like some of it, yeah.
So here,
I was with Matt, what, 2 years ago? The National Day of Civic Hacking with Orlando, who did a group on let's redo the flag. We also talked to Victor at the AIG panel, where we also talked about our city grant and how we want to make it more about Orlandoans and not just government. So this, not to be defensive, but I don't feel like
I just wanted to make
we have been engaging. It may not have been on a larger scale. It could have been.
Sure.
But that's why we also had the committee and the people on this committee. Like, we made sure that we reached out to AIG and have someone on the committee. We reached out to Code for Orlando with Chad because he's been involved in it for 2 years. Cole was on the committee, Stephanie's on the committee. People, like Michelle said, people from different parts of the city were involved to look at those design standards. We understand the design standards, the rule of thirds, the golden ratio, all that stuff was talked about in the committee because a child's not going to know those. But the elements that they create can be converted into that. So that was also part of the process of our thinking, just to sort of,
So
everything is valid.
I want to bring it back to you.
Yeah, if he has some money, take it back over.
And I still want to, I remember what I was going to say is, and this is really quick, is you made a comment about like when something gets put out, this community is like, and kind of jumps all over it, and you're so quick to nitpick and insult. That's an issue. I mean, that's an issue with a lot of other different communities, is that if you don't support each other, it comes out. And so some of the conversations that we're hearing, and it's difficult because it's art and it is subjective and people see things through a different lens. And it depends on how big or how small or what color your lens is, that it really does influence how you see things. And, you know, if you're finding yourself looking at art and insulting it, I mean, where's that take a step back and be like, I wonder what that artist was thinking. What was the symbolism? What was all the other technical terms for that? I don't know.
And yeah, in many ways, graphic design is not art, it's communication, visual communication. So I think it is subjective as well, but it is creation with a purpose and goal. So I think it's slightly different in the way that we approach our craft as opposed to any fine artist.
And the point was made earlier that flag design has its own set of rules, even probably as a subset of graphic design. But like, I mean, even some of the things like, oh, only use 3 colors and like things like that. Well, there are reasons why those are, you know, sort of the guidelines to flag design. But it's also, I don't know, it's interesting. I think, honestly, to kind of take a step back, like I was involved in Code for Orlando 2 years ago when we had the hackathon, and it was a lot of fun. But we didn't end up coming up with a good flag design because flag design is hard. I mean, Chad was awesome. We all kind of sat around and we in a matter of a hackathon day, we came up with a couple hundred ideas, just taking index cards. Actually, that was our approach to it. And there wasn't any out of that whole set that I was like, well, this is one we should iterate off of and make better. For this, I actually got an index card and drew it, and I threw away everything I drew because I was like, that's not good enough to represent the city of Orlando. And I wasn't able to design the flag. But I think honestly the flag is very emotional because of what the city has gone through. And we have symbols that represent Orlando in a very unique and interesting way. Even a rainbow flag or the Orlando City soccer logo or the fountain or there's a myriad of different icons that represent the city. And I think the reason why we all are so excited, so passionate about this flag is because it's something that means something to all of us, not just the designers in the room, but literally every citizen of Orlando. This is something that is going to represent us, and so hopefully we get to a place where we have a flag that does that. I do want to pull the conversation up to not specifically be about the flag, but kind of getting back to that conversation. And actually, I just kind of wanted to jump in, Michelle. What do you say to somebody who still says, spec work is still spec work?
It is. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not. There is a time and place for spec work. We are all individuals. We have the opportunity to make those choices and decide when we want to engage in that type of work.
I think we need to define spec work versus pro bono.
Right.
So spec work is the anticipation of possibly getting paid, possibly getting hired. Pro bono is offering design work for free.
But I still think, no matter how you define it, and I actually did make sure I checked out the definition of those two terms because I knew that you all would know that. I did a little bit of research. And it still comes down to it is spec work or it is pro bono work, but you have a choice on how you want to engage in it.
I think many times too, pro bono is done through engaging that designer on a basis where you're creating that partnership, you're working on it. Paula Scher, who is a designer that is well respected in the design community, works for a well-known agency in New York, says she does pro bono work, she does free work all the time, much like what Stephanie would do with her business practice. But she goes about it in a way that where what she designs is done. There aren't rounds of iterations, it is her final design is the design that's given because she's donating her time and talent to that, and that's the guidelines that she's put in place for that. But spec work is such a hot topic for our industry because how many times do all of us get approached saying, can you just design this logo for me? Can you do it? It'll be a portfolio builder or something like that. It's constant. So in some respects, exposure. So in some respects, we have to be hot and get on to stuff like this because otherwise our industry will continue to not hold the respect that we should have.
I encourage all of you to become an actor for a year. You're putting yourself out every day.
Yeah.
Everybody wants you to do something that'll be great for your resume. It'll be great exposure. Yeah. So, I mean, I understand totally. And all that stuff in the acting world, people look at it and say, that's stupid. No. So, totally get it. This story kind of embodies maybe a little bit of where we are for me. There's a lady who was sitting in her car, the Sunrail train passed by. This is another thing that I try to advocate for artists to get paid for. And it just wasn't there, and I have mixed feelings about it. But this lady was sitting in her car, the Sunrail train went by, she said, all those windows are a perfect place for art to go. She applied to some grants, she got $1,000, which was enough to pay for some stick and peel stuff to go on the outside of Sunrail train windows on a single car. And so Sunrail puts out a call for artists. I sent an email, what's going on here? We don't have money to pay artists. That lady took that art, she gave it her time, she advocated for it to happen, she got Sunrail to say yes. They put the art on the side of the train, and now there's art on the side of the train. And they used the $1,000 they got for it to pay to like print the art. And for me, it's like, we have two options. There's no art on the side of the train, or there's art on the side of the train. The third option of paying these artists a lot of money to put their art on the side of the train doesn't currently exist. So what's our choice? Like, what's our decision? Do we just say, all right, we're not going to have any art in our city until we can all get paid for it? It's like there's a chicken and an egg dilemma here. More artists are going to get paid because our city's awesome, and more artists like live here and people value art more. And then the other side of it is like, no, I should get paid, so pay me and there'll be more art. And we're all stuck in this dilemma, right? Of the chicken and the egg, of the art and the not art. Do I give it or do I not give it? But I know that all of us want to live in a better city. And that's where the design and civic engagement comes in. How am I going to make a choice, and what are the things that I'm going to choose to give my art to, or my design to, or my communication to, or my time to, or my money to, because I believe Orlando can be awesomer. And I think that's where we are, and that's what the flag is. And if you hate the flag, every time you look at the flag, think, I hate that flag, and it is because the way it is, because I chose not to participate. And that's fine. You have the right to not participate, but let it be a reminder to you that civic engagement is important. And you don't have to engage in the flag contest, but if you choose not to, know that it's something you don't like because you chose not to engage in it. Let it be a reminder of what the role of the artist is in making our city a better place. Because all of us play a role in that, and it's going to get better because we give free shit away.
My guess, every person in this room probably would have engaged in the process if we've been probably personally asked to be partners in that process on a one-on-one relationship.
And I know, that's why I started at the beginning, very first thing. You all are generous, and I know it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
So, and then let me qualify what I just said. Our city is better because you give free shit away, and then you get paid. Like, that is the end goal for all of us in this room, that all of us get paid.
It's also difficult because we, in this organization in particular, too, watch our designers leave the city in droves.
That's why I started the Creative City Project in 2012. And that, I hate raising money. I hate it. I spend 30 hours a week raising money, and this year we will pay artists $45,000. I hate raising money, but I started the Creative City Project because I wanted to pay artists so my friends would stop leaving town.
Yeah.
So I'm on your boat.
Right,
We're on the same ship.
We want Orlando to be on the map of creative cities that designers want to live and exist in, and unfortunately, the market here for us is bad, and we have to leave to find better opportunities, and that makes us so sad. But that is one of the reasons that this chapter exists, is to get us together, to unite us, to help us grow in our skills, to engage civically however we can, because we want to make an impact in the city and make it a place where we can live and exist and get paid.
I'm mad.
We don't want to leave. Most of us don't want to leave. Some of us leave for other reasons, but a lot of us have to leave because there are no jobs for us here, and it's sad. It's very sad.
So, we all want our city to be better. We all are passionate, and we all care, and there are a lot of projects that we are happy to get involved with, even if we're not being compensated. But we all also need to make money and be able to support ourselves and our families, and live our lives. And so, this is going to be our last question, and we can, you all can take it as long as you want. I've been trying to kind of just allow the conversation to happen naturally, but I really want us to say, like, where do we draw that line? Like, I know we talked a little bit on the phone about, like, actually Andrew Kozlik's talk about the digital tithe, and we talked a lot about, like, a lot of different ways of engaging where it's you know, all these different models. But yeah, so where do we draw the line between civic engagement and working for free?
I think it's a personal choice in a lot of ways, but from a professional association standpoint, like coming from AIGA, I would strongly suggest to all designers that if a company is going to make money, which I know puts the flag in a completely different realm, and I'm just going to get off the flag topic for a second, but don't do it for free. Like, they're going to make money off of you. Don't do it for free. I have struggled with that my entire career because I want to give of myself. I've worked with nonprofit organizations for more than half of my career. It's sticky. So where's the line? I think the line is very gray, but I think you have to do it for free because it's an organization or a cause that you're passionate about, but then recognize too, but if it's a company that's just going to make money off of you, just don't get taken advantage of, ultimately. Oh, also, because if you do, then they're just going to continue to think that they can do it to other people, so you're not helping our profession in the long run.
That was like a disclaimer. That's a difficult question for me to answer because, as I had mentioned when I started, my whole career has been in nonprofits and government. So I'm a public servant. It's what I do. I have never been paid appropriately for what I do. In fact, it's a joke in our office that I am always underpaid. And because of my positions, I've been unable to do side work or consulting work. But that was a choice that I made. And I felt really important to give back to my community, and that's how I as an individual serve. So for me, the service piece is really important. I know what I need to make to be able to put a roof over myself and my children's head. You know, I'm a single mom and raised two beautiful girls, and I went to school. I have a master's degree. I paid my student loans off. I didn't have someone pay for it for me. I work hard, but I love what I do. And I always say when I wake up in the morning and I'm brushing my teeth, that when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm really happy with what I do. And I know that I'm not going to be able to, buy fancy designer pocketbooks and, do some stuff that some of my other people that work in the private sector will do. But I love what I do. And I go to work every day, and I know that I make people's lives better. And to me, that you can't put a price tag on. In Orlando, when I chose to move here, I chose it to be my home. I chose it to be a place where I was going to raise my children. And I have a call to leave it better than I found it. And so to me, it's a very personal question. And I think that everyone in this room kind of needs to have that answer for yourself. And it should be different, because if you take a look around this room, we're all different individuals. And just because something works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But you really need to have that conversation with yourself and be real with yourself and be comfortable with it. And lead by example, and don't second guess yourself, because you know what you need and you know what's right and you know what will make you tick every day. And so, that's why I've chosen the path that I have chosen, and I truly, nothing makes me more proud when I take my children and I'm walking around our great city, and whether I'm in one of our Main Street districts or I'm coming downtown, and I get to take my kid to a show over at the Amway, and she's like, my mom was a part of making that building a reality. Like, I still get a little teary-eyed because, yeah, your mom was a part of that. And yes, I didn't get to put you to bed every single night, but, I helped create a space that brings amazing entertainment for people to come and enjoy and spend special time and moments together. And that's important to me. I'm not much of a preacher like Cole, but...
You asked your question, it made me very emotional, because for me, I struggle with this question every day of my life. And the answer for me, when you asked it, was when I give up hope. Like, when I think that my contribution isn't going to change anything, that's when I'm going to stop doing stuff for free. And if somebody's a for-profit company and making money off your work, they should pay you. This for me is a conversation about this. And I'm going to stop doing this when I think what I'm doing here isn't going to make a difference. And I wake up every day, and I just said, I spend 30 hours of my week raising money, and I hate it. And because of that, I wake up and I ask myself the question, am I going to do this again today? I literally just told Michelle, if some things don't line up in the next 6 months, I don't know if this thing that I've been doing the last 5 years of my life, if I'm going to keep doing it, because I have to live a healthy life and I need to enjoy my life. And the moment that I believe that the energy that I'm putting into the thing is not going to pay back in making this a better place to live, I'm not going to do it anymore. And so for me, the answer to your question is like there's a death of something. There's a death of the hope that like this place can be a different place, and that my role and your role in making it a better place actually means something. And so for me, the answer to your question is like, when I've just given up hope and think that my contribution is not going to make a difference. But until that day, I'm going to keep doing stuff, and I'm not going to get paid for a lot of it. And that's a choice I made. Like Michelle made a choice, and like you make a choice in doing the things you do. And I think we'll all be better off if we figure out like what that choice is going to be.
Thank you.
Heavy.
Very heavy. I don't think anybody has any last remarks after that.
Happy hour?
Yeah, so I have a few questions, and I'm extraordinarily sorry if you submitted a question that I didn't get to. I've got 4 here. But I would really, really, really encourage you to come talk to the person, because there's a couple of them are pretty specific for Michelle. And then there's one that's very specific for AIGA as well. And so I'd really encourage you to connect with these people one-on-one and really, have a conversation. We are all in this community together, and that really means something. I know we've been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes now, so I do think it's probably appropriate time for us to wrap up. But I just wanted to say my sincere thank you to all 3 of you.
Thank you.
This may not have been the first conversation on this topic, and it certainly will not be the last, but I'm really glad that we did it tonight, and I hope this conversation continues. This is very important. It is very important that we respect our professionals in our community, and we make sure that they are fairly compensated for their work. And it is important that we give back to our communities and want to make the place that we live in a better place. So I think it's been a wonderful conversation, and let's hear just a big round of applause for our panelists. And thank you to every one of you who came and are sitting in this audience right now. I mean, you being here really matters as well. And you are a part of this, like I said. Continue this conversation. It doesn't have to end right now. So please stick around. I don't know, is there a happy hour planned or anything?
We don't have anything planned, but there's no reason there shouldn't be.
There's no reason there shouldn't be. So
We technically, should we just, a lot of times we go to Ferg's Depot after our monthly community meetings, and we just take over. So we can just go there.
Wonderful.
Unless anybody has any other suggestions.
if you're interested in drinks, right across the train tracks is Ferg's Depot, and gather a group of people and bring them on over.
Yes, please, let's continue the conversation.
Cool. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.